It's Alabama. It's Ohio State. It should be something else for the national championship of 2020. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love and breaking down the game for all the marbles here in 2020. Two superpowers go at it, the Buckeyes and the Tide. We got Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama on the line to break it down for us. Stephen, how you doing?
Doing great, Mark. Doing fantastic. Enjoyed my time at the Rose Bowl. Alabama getting the 31-14 win over Notre Dame. But now, as you mentioned, we look at Alabama and Ohio State, two-story field programs for a national title.
So let's look back at the Notre Dame effort, 31-14 final. Bama took control early, highlighted by the Najee Harris leap, a number of outstanding plays in the open field by Devontae Smith. Again, your thoughts about Bama's effort? Really, Notre Dame had the one drive when it was meaningful. Of course, they scored the late touchdown that was just window dressing, but the one drive that they grinded out and really played the type of offensive football drive that they needed to and really wanted to keep Bama on the sideline. But other than that, the Tide had its way, really controlled the game.
I feel like Alabama had a strong game plan offensively against Notre Dame, trying to protect the lead once it got the lead. I know a lot of Alabama fans would ask the question, why didn't Steve Sarkisian call more and or do more? But after the game, Mac Jones talked about it, how once Alabama got the lead, trying to protect it, not get anybody hurt, because knowing that the winner of the Clemson Ohio State matchup and the Sugar Bowl, you had to have everybody, set to go for that game. So offensively, I felt like Alabama came out establishing a strong game plan. Mac Jones played well. Devontae Smith, as you mentioned, Mark, offensive MVP, most valuable player of the game. Not over 100 yards rushing, including the immaculate hurdle that he did clearing the Notre Dame defender. And people don't realize that Najee Harris was actually a big-time hurdler on the track field in high school over there at Antioch, California. So a little bit of background there on one Najee Harris. Defensively, I felt like once Alabama was able to fit the gaps and stopping Kyron Williams, the running back for the Fighting Irish, that Alabama was able to control the game even more from that standpoint defensively, because after it was able to shut down or limit Kyron Williams, Ian Book had a difficult time, really trying to stretch that field. So when they were able to stop Williams and when they were able to, offensively have the game plan that wanted coming out there, Bama took control from there.
Of course, here on Tuesday night, what will be awarded is, by many standards, the most prestigious in sports, the Heisman Trophy. Alabama has the opportunity to add a third to its trophy case as a university. Devontae Smith seems at this point to have just had a groundswell of support, and rightfully so, in recent weeks as the consensus choice. I don't know what the vote total is going to look like, but I would be surprised at this point if he doesn't walk away with the award.
He has had just an unbelievable career and an unbelievable season, Mark. And as much as I have detailed the journey of Mac Jones, and I have, as much time as I spent around, Mac's parents, Gordon and Holly Jones, two outstanding human beings, and I have. When Devontae Smith said, I'm coming back to Alabama for my senior year, he could have went pro after last season. There were so many draft pundits that had them high on their boards. But when Smitty said, I'm coming back, the jolt of confidence, the jolt of energy, the jolt of expectation that he gave to an Alabama team to go on a run to potentially win a national championship, Devontae Smith's decision to come back brought so much to this team. He's a team captain for a reason. He has earned so many individual accolades for a reason this year. And I remember when Jalen Waddle went down, there were so many people saying, well, that's the only real weapon that Bama's got. They have nobody as explosive as Jalen Waddle. And Devontae Smith said, hold my beer, hold on here. And he took it to an exponential degree of productivity. There was one moment in a game where Devontae Smith was triple covered, and I'm seeing him mouth the words to Mac Jones, get me the ball anyway. It doesn't matter who's on me. Get me the football. And this young man, during the 8 games that Jalen Waddle was out, 6 of those 8 games, he had over 100 yards receiving, including a pair of 200-yard games against LSU and Mississippi State. Of course, he had the whale of a game in the SEC Championship, 15 catches, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. He set a Rose Bowl game record. We tied a Rose Bowl game record with 3 touchdown receptions. I mean, the guy has just been out of this world this entire season. 105 catches, over 1,500 receiving yards, 20 touchdowns. He's got 22 total scores if you add his rushing touchdown and his 84-yard punt return score against Arkansas. Just an incredible year.
We always benefit big time from the breakdown from Stephen M. Smith of TouchdownAlabama.com. Please join him and the rest of the staff right there, TouchdownAlabama.com. Also, follow Stephen on Twitter at Coaching M. Smith. Coaching M. Smith. Follow Stephen M. Smith on Twitter for Alabama football updates. And speaking of Jalen Waddle at 22 yards per reception, a game breaker, game changer to his own right. Of course, had to leave the game against Tennessee. He has yet to step on the field since, but there are hopeful signs that he'll be making his way back to the national championship game, to the point where it's pretty much left to the young man to decide whether he's comfortable taking the field.
Nick Saban, Mark, has put this in the hands of Jalen Waddle. The medical staff has cleared him to practice this week. He actually practiced for the first time on yesterday. He's practicing today, and then throughout the week, it will depend on the comfortability he has on that right ankle. Now, he took the trip with Alabama to the SEC title game, showed no limp on that right leg. He also made the trip to the Rose Bowl game in Arlington, Texas. No limp on the right leg there. So just from him walking to him running to him moving around, he has shown no sign of any discomfort, but it will come down to how he progresses this week in practice and how comfortable he feels. If he feels like he can go, he will go against Ohio State.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the big one, Alabama-Ohio State national championship game. We got Stephen M. Smith on the line, of course, from TouchdownAlabama.com. Steve Sarkisian replaces Tom Herman at Texas, takes on one of the storied programs himself in college football. And this is not a new experience for Nick Saban and the rest of his coaching staff to have to deal with a primary contributor as an offensive coordinator, juggling roles, juggling positions and tasks and time, as Steve Sarkisian will. Has there been any discussion to the media in regards to how that's going to be handled and the comfort level of everyone involved?
Well, Steve Sarkisian is going to coach this team in the national championship game. He mentioned after accepting the head coaching job at Texas that he made a commitment to Alabama. He made a commitment to Coach Saban to finish this thing out. Now, of course, he is trying to put together his offensive staff at Texas. He's targeting a couple of staffers here from the Crimson Tide, including one A.J. Milwee, the offensive analyst at Alabama. So while Sark is trying to put together his offensive staff for Texas, he is committed to putting ample amount of time in the game plan, in the scheme, and the strategy for the Tide in facing an Ohio State offense an Ohio State defense, and an Ohio State team that's very, very dominant, led by head coach Ryan Day. So Coach Sark is full on with the game plan. He has put a lot of focus into this game plan, and the players have also put a lot of focus into this game plan. So there has not been a whole lot of distraction, of any major distraction at all for Coach Saban and Steve Sarkisian and having this team locked and centered on this matchup next week against the Buckeyes.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please lock it in here. Like the videos. Share them out on social media. Not everyone knows that we're here talking college football every day. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's our aim. That's our goal. That's our mission. Hit that bell for the notifications once you have subscribed. That way you know when we're going live. We're here with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. And Stephen, while Alabama and Clemson has become a bit of a postseason rivalry, and for good measure, they have met in more meaningful games than any two schools over this college football playoff era. From a more historic standpoint, I don't know that you could get the combination of the history, the legacy, the traditions, the prestige, and just the winning brands together that would be more dominant than these two. I think they're the two marquee programs when you combine the current state and landscape of college football with the historic when you match up Alabama and Ohio State. So let's go to the matchups and let's go into the trenches, because that's really where the Buckeyes took it to Clemson with an offensive line display that was just overwhelming. And on the defensive front, especially from the tackle position, able to completely shut down Travis Etienne and push the pocket in the face of Trevor Lawrence. So this is going to be a titanic battle in the trenches on both sides.
Absolutely. And starting this thing off for Ohio State's defense, the Buckeyes coming in, you didn't really know if they had guys that were quick twitch edge rushers on the outside. But against Clemson, though I stepped up. You talk about rip moves, swim moves, bull rush moves, getting into the pads of offensive linemen, getting around those guys. And not only did they affect Trevor Lawrence, Mark, they ripped the ball from him. You talk about fumble after forced fumble after forced fumble. They really aggravated Trevor. They agitated him. They put him on the ground. They created turnovers. They made Travis Etienne a non-factor. I've never seen Trevor Lawrence look as uncomfortable as I saw him look against Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. Now, of course, when he faced LSU last year in the national title game, there was some uncomfortability there. But against Ohio State, that group really put it on Trevor, really put it on Travis Etienne, and bullied its way against that offensive line. For Alabama in this game, the group of Chris Owens, Alex Leatherwood, Emil Ekiyor, the whole group, Deontay Brown, that entire offensive line from left to right there, they have got to keen in on keeping a clean pocket for Mac Jones. They got to keen in on keeping that pocket clean. But not just that, fitting those runs for Najee Harris to have success. Because going back to Notre Dame, yes, Najee Harris had a big game, but there were also moments where Notre Dame was able to kind of stalemate the Alabama offensive line and not allow those run fits to be opened up where Najee could probably get even more yards. So for this Alabama offensive line, got to consistently keep a clean pocket for Mac Jones, and as often as possible, open up those opportunities for Najee Harris, because Ohio State showed against Clemson, they've got the dogs to not just stop the run, but they got the dogs to consistently affect the quarterback, the passing game, and create turnovers where that is concerned too. Offensively, for Ohio State, their ability to protect Justin Fields in that pocket, allowing him to have a 6-touchdown performance, despite the fact that he did take a shot there from Stowski, the Clemson linebacker, and had some issues there with his ribs. Alabama's defense in this game, the likes of Christian Barmore, Will Anderson, Chris Allen, among others, have to constantly get to Justin Fields, whether it's Barmore on the defensive line, Will Anderson at jack linebacker, Christopher Allen at the strong side backer position, finding any way possible to get to Justin Fields, affect Justin Fields, not allowing him to feel comfortable, not only in the pocket, but when he tries to extend the plays on the run, get to him, come to him with intensity, finish the play, wrap up, hit him, get to him. I mean, along with that, being able to fit those runs and attacking Trey Sermon before he's able to get going. So, absolutely, Mark. Offensive line, defensive line, this will be a battle of the big men. The big men will dictate this game.
And when we go to the skill position players, and specifically wide receivers against secondary, with all due respect to Clemson, they recruit at an elite level at those positions, of course, but they were a bit downgraded and have been for the last couple of years at the wide receiver position, not receiving quite the productivity and just the elite play that they had been prior to that, where Alabama, I don't think there's any question, has the top wide receiver core in the nation, led by the very best, and of course, Devontae Smith. And Ohio State, of course, these are the two leading recruiting teams year in, year out across the board. And it becomes the most fun for the standard basic football fan to watch elite wide receiver play against tremendous secondary play.
Definitely. And especially when you look at what Ohio State and wide receivers been able to have this year with Chris Olave, and not just him, that they have multiple other guys, but just the confidence that Justin Fields has in Chris Olave and a couple of other guys, especially they got some players there at tight end that were able to get open and catch passes and create, matchup issues for Clemson. But then for Alabama, just the number of different receivers have come to this program, whether it was Julio Jones in the past or Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, and, last year you had the likes of Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle. And now you look at Devontae Smith, Waddle, John Mechie. Both programs have been able to stockpile talent at the wide receiver position, but they've also been able to stockpile talent in the secondary. Ohio State with Sean Wade in that defensive backfield. Alabama's got Patrick Surtain, a first-round pick. Josh Jobe, who is a physical defensive back. Jordan Battle, who's played well this year. You look at Malachi Moore, who's been a phenomenal freshman, along with Brian Branch. So both programs at the wide receiver position and the defensive secondary, talent galore on both ends. The biggest question will be here, Mark, will be the physicality in both spots. How physical will Ohio State's DBs play Alabama's receivers? How physical will Alabama's DBs play Ohio State's receivers? And then for both teams' receiving cores, how quick can either one of these two receiving cores get off the ball, create separation, not allow itself to be jammed up by defensive backs, and how quickly can either one of these two receiving cores work back to the quarterback, find the holes in the zone, and make those big plays.
And then finally, Stephen, there's the psychological. And for Alabama, they have been here time after time after time after time. For Ohio State, certainly they're not unaccustomed to the big stage. But under Ryan Day, of course, this is a second go-around in the college football playoff, and they poured so much of themselves into that effort and that rematch against Clemson, coming back from what you well know to be a game last year that they very much felt to be the better team and wanted justification and vindication for their effort last year, in which they left the field believing that they were the better team, and then working so hard to get back to this point and just exhausting themselves against Clemson, and maybe that being a bit of a concern in the Buckeye camp that they just put so much into that game that to be able to gather themselves and stand up to another big time matchup could be difficult. Whereas Alabama, I don't want to discredit the effort against Notre Dame, but certainly didn't have to exhaust themselves to the degree that Ohio State did in the semifinal.
Both teams are real. The psychological on both teams, Mark, and you brought up Ohio State. When you look at what the comments that Dabo Swinney made of Clemson prior to that game, it got under the skin of Ryan Day. It got under the skin of that entire team. They felt like last year they should have won that game, and Ohio State should have won that game. Unfortunately, it did not happen. They came back this time around. They put up almost 50 points on a Brent Venables defense. Justin Fields had an incredible showing. Trey Sermon went off in that game. Chris Olave over 100 yards receiving. Defensively, they got to Trevor Lawrence. They frustrated him. They frustrated Dabo Swinney. That was a complete, utter domination there by the Ohio State Buckeyes, Ryan Day and Justin Fields. So that they came in to that matchup against Clemson with a huge chip on their shoulder because they felt like we should have won the game last year. And after the comments made by Coach Sweeney on how we're just the 11th best team in the country, well, we'll show him by beating up on his team. I mean, going back to Alabama for just a moment, in the first ever college football playoff, it was Alabama versus Ohio State, the Urban Meyer edition, and Alabama had a 21-6 lead early in that game. The tie went away from Derrick Henry in the run game, and Cardinals, Ezekiel Elliott and company got the 42-35 win. So Saban is looking for a little vengeance or redemption from that matchup in the first ever college football playoff meeting between the Tide and the Buckeyes. So this game means a lot to both programs, Mark. I am so excited for next week.
There you go. Yes, the first semifinal matchup in the college football playoff, barn burner at 42-35, and this time it's Nick Saban against Ryan Day. Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama, we encourage you to head on over there, touchdownalabama.com. You see it on the banner right there to check out Stephen's work and the rest of the staff. Stephen, enjoy the game. We always appreciate you stopping by for the big breakdown.
Absolutely. Take care. Happy New Year to you, man.